Hello, YouTube. Subscribe. Well, I don't really have any subscribers, but this is a little, not really behind the scenes, but it's kind of behind the scenes.
It's a look at the monsters.
Yeah,
like behind the mask,
basically.
And I'd been talking about doing a wrestling, specifically backyard wrestling documentary for a while, and I watched these student productions. Big props to them. Chicken and I don't remember anybody else's names, but I haven't really met many of y'all in person. But anyways, I was watching their Behind the Mask because they all work at Knox, and I was inspired to do a haunt one for us and our friends that we know from across the haunts, from Sinister Point, Universal, Knott's, Empty Grave, Dark Harbor, wherever else. I don't really think there are any others that we know, but...
And one of the things about this is, the reason that it's the three of us right now is we were planning on making this, you know, like you said, in very much the same style, where it's more like an interview or something.
Yeah.
But the three of us, I mean, we've been together working haunts, the same haunts, you know, a lot of times the same places, you know, for years now. And so for us three, since we're basically going to be the ones doing this, we figured that we just kind of started with the three of us having a discussion about our thoughts, go over a lot of the same kind of questions and stuff that we'd ask, you know, anybody else that we'd be talking to for this. So this is kind of an introductory one to, like, what we're doing, see how you guys like it, hopefully get a kind of better look and get our opinions and our ideals and the way we see things, just kind of kick it off.
So I guess we should probably introduce ourselves with the brief ones that I was going to ask everybody. Most of you know me, all you people just now meeting me on the internet for the first time. I'm Jan. My home name is Rampage. Long story. I probably should tell that to everyone.
We can get into those. Yeah.
I won't do it now, but yeah, we'll get back into
anyway.
it. I guess
I'm his brother, Greg. A lot of you know me again, since we've been at the same places all the time. Technically, my haunt name is Scourge. That we kind of just stuck with that because that was the name. The three of us have become known, especially the Sinister Point crew, as the Apocalypto Brothers, just because we've always stuck together since, you know, 08.
Thanks, Chainsaw guys.
And back then we actually one of the great things, I'm gonna kind of break away for a second. One of the great things about Sinister Point, you know, giving props out to our boys at Sinister Point, is we get a lot of creative freedom. And back then, you know, we were given the rights to make our own characters. So Scourge was my name back then, and so I kind of stuck around a little bit. Kind of an unofficial one. I don't really have a nickname, but our boy Toad, Queen Mary, started calling me Face. Kind of relates to Jan's Rampage thing. And again, we'll get to that later. So Scourge, Face, whatever you guys want to call me, it's cool.
And then I'm Michael Britton. I am not the brother, and yeah, we got started up in about 2008.
Yeah,
that was with our Tustin Haunt at our friend Benny's house.
First year, even though it was only like...
As the three of us together, it was like all of us together.
It was our start.
Yeah. From then on, we've been working a lot of Sinister Point, a lot of Dark Harbor, and I've kind of gotten between those two haunts, I've earned a couple of nicknames. The first one, the Sinister Point name that I usually go by, at least for our gimmick, our Apocalypto Brothers, is I go by Grim. But I think the more popular one that's popped up not recently, but at Dark Harbor, was Kane. Reason for that being, at that point I was doing a lot of shaving of my head, and coincidentally had a contact that would just white out everything but the pupil. So I guess you can kind of see where that all comes in.
And considering he's much taller than most people at about 6'4", 6'5", something like that.
6'4".
He's towering above most people. So when you get the shaved head, the one white eye, being that tall against most people,
sometimes I'll shave my eyebrows.
You know, wrestling fans who know Kane when he was without the mask, you guys get it without even having to hear it earlier.
I do have to bring up another nickname that you had from Sinister Point.
I have a feeling where this is going.
Fat Pyramid Head.
Yeah, this is true. At one point, it was in 2009. We were up in Brea, up at this, I think it was abandoned, an abandoned
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah.
And we had 2 mazes going, and oh my god, these are some of the best ones we've done by far, and these were some of the first ones. We had a custom maze called Fear. Freaking
Interactive.
phenomenal. Interactive, you got to pick your own adventure. Classy. I loved it, and it was never the same twice, unless you literally went nothing but left and then nothing but right, in which case then, yeah, it would, there you go. So then we had another one. That was our Silent Hill maze. Officially sponsored.
Which should
Konami officially sponsored.
Which should sound familiar because this year Universal is doing the Silent Hill
Yes, they
things,
are.
which I find interesting.
Wasn't it Universal that did Saw after?
Yeah.
Again, Saw. That was another one. Universal had done Saw, and after Jeff at Sinister Point had done an official Saw maze.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting that it's kind of coming full circle. Sinister Point, you know, leading the way basically for all these really good ones. We're setting the tone over there at Sinister Point. So, you know, again, kind of plug, check that out if you got the time. Sinister Point's fantastic.
Alright, well, let's get into the other stuff now then.
Now we're going to kind of cover the questions that we'd be asking other people. Again, this is more of like a talk show basically at this point. Since it's the 3 of us, the Apocalypto brothers, if you will.
With the classy jazz.
With the classy jazz music, you know, Sirius Radio, can't go wrong.
We're classy like that.
Alright, well, I'll start the way I did the first time we tried this before the battery died. Maze versus Streets. It comes up a lot.
It
You
does.
know-
It does.
There's a lot of skewed views that are wrong about that, in my opinion, from both sides. He covered it in the one that we ended up scrapping that you guys have no idea what we're talking about right now. But recently, you know, there was the Orange County Register, right?
Yeah.
Had put out something about the Knott's monsters and whatnot. And the way they portrayed it, it seems that the management, especially over at Knott's, and I know it's, like you had also said previously when we were talking, it's kind of not really a stigma, but in a way it is, where a lot of people tend to take Streets as being the big leagues, and in the Register, they actually use the words referring to maze monsters as being in the little leagues, and minor leagues, and getting kind of sent down a notch. And I think that's really flawed, especially for the lesser haunts. I mean, Sinister Point, all 3 of us, you know, Tustin Haunt with Ben, we started on the Streets doing our thing. It was the Western thing, so it was really cool. Same effect as Sinister Point, where you have a lot of creative control over who you are. And at Sinister Point, the 3 of us started on the Streets with our post-apocalyptic kind of theme characters in the slaughter yard. And man, it was a freaking blast. And we had a lot of really cool props and a lot of really cool space to work with. And all of us eventually moved into the maze. And there's a lot of reasons for that kind of treatment for monsters, which is in a lot of cases, when mazes can't be filled by other people, you want to bring in people to fill it in. And if you have to take from the streets, you got to take from the streets. You're not going to leave your maze empty, among other things.
And that's what happened with us.
Exactly.
We ran out of people to fill in the maze, and they said, "Hey guys, we need your help on the inside." We said, "You know what? Why not?" And we gave it a shot, and man, we freaking rocked that place.
It was amazing, especially, oh man, Mike, a lot of you, if you've been to the Sinister Point, especially that year in Fear, the first year with Fear, may remember the door room and the the monitor room, and that was these 2 here. For a little while, I was the very first kind of pop-out scare, the little kind of like lead-in, I guess. But Mike over at the door room, not going to talk too much about it because again, a lot of the sets and stuff get reused and redone and reworked. But you know, the 3 of us being experienced and having gotten our start on the various streets at a couple different places, Sinister Point, Tustin Haunt, that's what we did. You know, we started on streets, and that's really how we picked up our pace as monsters. And when we went into the mazes, we didn't think of it as moving down. We thought of it as another location.
It's a new opportunity. I wouldn't say they're incomparable, but they're just so different.
Well, you know, part of it is that it gets a bad rep because of the fact that, especially at Knott's, I'm going to single out Knott's specifically. Now, this isn't the case for the people we know at Knott's.
Yeah, it's not calling anybody out, really.
Yeah. As a general rule of thumb, you have good people, but especially at Knott's, because they have so many mazes and so many people working for them, you can't be as selective. You just you pick the best of the worst at the bottom end of it. And so you get people like Mizu, who, and I say this, you're our friend, so we're a little biased, but if I genuinely didn't think you were good, I wouldn't shower you with compliments. You did a great job, legitimately. There are people like that who are first year but are into it, get it,
they're naturals.
love it. They're
They pick it up.
naturals. Obviously I think we were that way, but based on what people have told us, and I trust that they're giving us their honest opinions, we get it. We live this. It's part of us.
It's a passion.
And yeah,
and I noticed that's actually something a lot of us who really care about it get is you have the passion for the creativity and the
we really care about this kind of
and I did want to touch on another thing that you were actually sort of touching on there, which is about getting the monsters in, especially for something like Knott's. I mean, think of it this way, right? The last couple of years we've been working over at the Queen Mary. Now that there's good management in charge that's like really solidly, no offense to the other haunts, but we've really been taking the lead amongst the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And Dark Harbor, we're really pulling ahead with a lot of people taking us seriously after the horrors that were shipwrecked. And to put it,
I think we need to wait to the end of the video to really get into that.
Put it this way, though. At Dark Harbor, when we were talking with the management during the hiring process, especially the first year when everybody was getting used to it, you've got only a few hundred roles to fill out. It sounds like a lot when you consider a lot of haunts, especially like Sinister Point. It's a fairly small location.
I think Sinister Point we have like 50.
Yeah, so such a local,
a good solid number.
Small location. You only need
40 to 50.
Yeah,
but
not very many.
So it's easy to think, oh, Dark Harbor, 300, 350, whatever, how many people. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not, especially when you consider that you have, all the different types of monsters and positions to fill. And at Knott's, what are the numbers at Knott's?
Knott's, I think it's counting blackouts and the such. Knott's has, according to the register, 1,000 spots that they fill.
1,000. That's a lot to fill.
4 digits.
And that,
at Dark Harbor, you can be a little more selective with who you choose. Are they right for the place?
Mm-hmm.
What place would they be right for? Our management has a lot of hard decisions to make on who they choose and finding out exactly if they'd be right for the spot. At Knott's, when you have 1,000 roles to fill, you got to be that selective too, but you're running on the same kind of time frames as, any other haunt.
Well, and the other thing about Knott's is, unfortunately, in the last I've only been going to Knott's since 2008, but every year it's gone down in quality, in my opinion, overall. The high spots are still the high spots. I still love the sets and everything, but it's just when they're looking at it from a business perspective. It's not Knott's running it, it's Cedar Fair, and they have dozens of theme parks all over the country, and I think internationally, I think they have some in like Canada and stuff.
To kind of also kind of put that out there, or just our opinion on it is that especially for my brother and I, we grew up going to Knott's a lot, and that was one of our big things as a kid. And when Cedar Fair took over, it wasn't extreme. Yeah, it wasn't Knott's anymore. It wasn't that really awesome Western theme
with a couple
modernized rides. Right. It was Six Flags with a slight Western thing to it now.
Yeah,
it's So I mean, with Cedar Fair in charge, you can't really expect it to have the same kind of punch that it used to have.
Yeah, and because it's theme park executives thinking like theme park executives, hiring people who they think are going to run it right, and they do a acceptable job. I still feel that it's worth the money spent. Our friends still do a great job.
Again, we're not putting anyone down.
Yeah.
We're just kind of saying what we're...
It's constructive criticism.
Yeah.
But the thing about Dark Harbor, and the thing that I think really, really catapulted us to the forefront, but then helped us maintain it, was what catapulted us was, I don't care what anybody says, John Autopsy's music that first year. John Autopsy, you put out some crazy stuff.
Pretty bomb stuff.
I'm going to try and keep it I don't really think it matters since it's YouTube. We can swear all we want, but I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum, at least for this first one. Until we probably talk to someone like Rowley, who's going to probably swear a lot. That's cool. You've got a good soundtrack. Last year's wasn't bad. I just think that John's was better, which is what got us to the point where we're at.
And for those curious, by the way, John Autopsy did the music at Sinister Point for the Fear years.
All the way till now.
Till now, yeah. But
and for Empty Grave.
And for Empty Grave. And, you know, it's just you got great stuff to work with.
Yeah. And then you also have, you had Jeff and the Sinister Point crew, or whatever, Sinister Point Productions, or whatever it's called now, who are amazing at set design and all that stuff and putting unique touches. So a lot of the props and stuff, they reused a lot of the sets because they had to, but they really did a good job in reusing those sets. Yeah, I mean, you walk through Submerged, Hellfire, and Containment, you would never know that those were formerly Shipwreck mazes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you go look up on YouTube walkthroughs, it's completely different from those walkthroughs. So there's that, and then on top of that, when they brought in David Wally, who, big shout out to David, and it sounds like sucking up, but he's genuinely, he was the right guy to pick, and I didn't know that. I thought it was funny that I think it was Damage posted a screenshot of David's name on the credits to something. But I don't know. David is
he gets it.
Yeah, he gets it. Yeah. Part of it is he's a Hollywood producer. He's a Hollywood producer, stage producer. He's an entertainment person.
He cares about it, you know. He's one of those guys who really, he's just right for it because he's really creative. He's excellent to work with because he really cares about, you know, the team. And I'm just talking about one of those guys where it's like, oh, you get along with, you know, the other leadership. Oh, you get along with the monsters. It's not one of those ones. It's he literally, you know, gets along with everybody that he's working with.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody great to work with who's your leadership, it really does affect the whole team. And that's another reason why I think Dark Harbor did so well is because, you know, everybody felt the connection between all of us.
Yeah, David Wally's the kind of guy. He can take the chaos that could happen and he can bring order out of it.
Oh yeah.
He knows how to work with all the different types of people. And he's used to the running around like a chicken with his head cut off. He can do that all day.
And I
gotta say that
I don't know how
I gotta give
energy up, David.
What I don't understand is how David managed to keep his head that first year. After Dark Harbor, we had to really bring it out after Shipwreck because people thought of Queen Mary. They thought of Shipwreck, and Shipwreck, as most of you know,
2009. Before that,
not the place to be.
Before 2009, it didn't have a great or
bad.
It was just kind of.
And our first few nights, I remember business. It was quite slow. A lot of people not sure, don't know if once kind of thing.
Even that last day of that first weekend, though, you could tell. I mean, the first couple of days were pretty not bad, but what you'd expect. It's kind of like an average, decent night. But man, as soon as people started going there, it was like a Katamari Damacy of Freddy and Jason.
Yeah, it's set up. Man, business boomed. It was like a freaking viral video wildfire, all mashed together. It spread, and boy, did we get a lot of people.
All right, I think we're going to move on a little bit.
We probably should start going to the actual questions and stuff.
This is the real reason we're here.
Yeah.
Well, and this all stemmed off of Maze vs. Street, and
again, this is kind of a custom version of it. The rest aren't going to be this long. It's just the three of us.
Related to the Maze and Streets, and I think since this is in order, and I actually think it actually relates, is sliding. What's your opinion on sliding?
Takes some skill. I mean,
it
looks easy, but
it's very athletic.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a good thing to have, especially because if you're going to be sliding, you really need, and I put the emphasis on this, especially for anyone who's not a slider but wants to slide, or is in the process of learning to slide. I'm not a slider, just to make it clear, but it's obvious anybody with a brain will know that you need to have a lot of control and the right amount of athleticism.
Yeah.
Because if you're sliding, you're putting yourself in a position to get hurt and to hurt other people. And if you don't have the control, you're probably going to end up doing that.
Yeah.
Control is real critical.
And I know that a lot of guests really like sliders.
Yeah.
Which is
I like
totally understand. And I love the sliders. Just
Yes,
just to put that out there.
Especially the boys in Queen Mary.
Yeah. And I genuinely, no offense to any other sliders out there, especially Sinister Point, because I put you guys on par with the Queen Mary sliders, except that guy Twitchy. Screw him.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But I really do think that the Queen Mary has the best sliders.
Yeah, I agree.
You guys drive me nuts with the whole obsession with Sons of Anarchy sometimes, with the whole top rockers and bottom rockers. But that's cool.
It's alright.
It's cool.
I think one problem that a lot of people have with sliders, for the people that do have a problem with sliders, is kind of
related to that. Almost.
No.
Oh,
it's not what you're thinking of. It's actually kind of grounded in reality with a reasonable thing, which is it's more of a personal preference.
Yeah.
Like what kind of horror movies do you like to watch? Like for me, I don't know about you guys. For me, I'm a big fan of real Japanese horror, not the American adaptations, even though the original Ring was actually pretty good. One Missed Call. A lot of you guys know the One Missed Call that Americans made. Never watched it. I heard it was really.
I think we can say shitty.
But
that would have been now.
Shitty.
Way to break the ice.
Yeah. But go rent, buy Netflix, whatever. The original Japanese made One Missed Call. I kid you not, it's the only horror movie that I consider 100% genuinely scary. It's the only one I've ever considered scary, actually scary, that scared me, because the Japanese have the kind of psychological horror that I can really connect with. I love the predatory mindset, the really just unnerving kind of horror. And which leads me to my point I was going to bring up about the sliders, that a lot of people, I know a lot of people have that issue, which is that sliding is primarily, it's a pop scare, it's a startle scare. It's like having one of those, you're walking through a maze and there's a box and you're just like, oh, it's a part of the set, someone pops out. It's like that except for mobile, which is great because then you get that kind of predatory, scare. But at the same time, for the most part, especially because of the gear they have to wear to slide, you're not looking at that, like one of my favorite monsters, and I know you guys agree, Iris Shard.
Yeah.
Her Two-Face costume, especially.
That was good.
God, that was creepy.
That's the kind of scare that I really love because it's that really creepy scare, and you're not just getting freaked out by it, but it's kind of scared. You don't even want to be near,
Yeah.
But with sliders, a lot of it is the pop kind of scare, and it works for most people, I think. I think a lot of people, most people love slider scares. I agree. I think it's a great scare, but you have to know the difference between scares, and it's against the haunt psychology. You got the pop scares, you got the creep scares, you got the suspense scares, that kind of thing. And for sliding, it's a pop scare, and I think the people that do have a problem with that is they think of it as only a pop scare and don't really see it for what it is, as a sliding scare.
What it is?
My problem. Well, not my problem with any specific group of sliders, but just a kind of general issue that I've seen is, especially with new sliders, is over-sliding.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, no offense, Twitchy, but Twitchy kind of did that in 09. Is slide and just keep sliding. And, I mean, he's got, obviously, he had a couple of years on us at that point. He's got mortars just like we do under his belt now. And you can tell the difference, and the fact that his body's wearing down too. I thought mine was bad, but a lot of people just are kind of too enthusiastic because it's an easy scare. Well, not easy, but you
don't want to wear it out.
Yeah. Which is it's kind of a shame that you don't see more in-maze sliders.
Yeah.
That are good. There's that one guy in Submerged.
Oh yeah.
And Justin was. I didn't really see Justin have to work, but Marino.
Yeah.
I never actually got to see him scare, but I mean he stayed, so he must have been good. But it's just it's Dog Meat. Sterling from 09. Mm-hmm. He was like that. He overdid the slide. It wasn't like the Chainsaw guys, who I count as sliders since they slide, or Twitchy or Gimp, where they pick pick it right. Twitchy did it a little bit over the top in 09 from time to time, but him and Boy B mostly picked and chose when to do it and would milk it as much as they could, but they picked and picked the right times.
Which is another good thing about our sliders over at the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
Is for the most part, I've never really seen them like misuse the right mindset. Like they tend to know.
And the thing even though I think the Queen Mary is better, I do have to say I still find the Knox sliders entertaining from a spectator's point of view. They're still entertaining.
Which actually, you don't even need to look at that. I was actually going to say let's go right into chainsaw.